All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this month's August edition of our Startup Resources series. We're very glad to have you. For those of you that are series subscribers, welcome back. And for those of you that are new, I think you're in for a treat in terms of the monthly resources that we share, particularly for our innovation hubs and all of the entrepreneurial support organizations across the state who are working every single day to help advance founders of early stage companies. So, of course, we bring these various different startup resources to your awareness so that you can utilize them as appropriate and share them with the founders that you're working with as your startup clients. I am delighted to be here, Lisa Bajornis. I'm Executive Director with KAITC, working with our Kentucky Innovation Hubs. And of course, I'm joined by our team from the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Cabinet for Economic Development to bring you this. Just a quick rundown of our agenda today. Of course, we have a topic that we'll be discussing. We're going to really dive into the latest and greatest, and there have been some changes with regard to our Kentucky Angel Investment Tax Credit program. And that is going to be great information for both startups as well as investors. We have Blue North as our hub highlight today to hear the latest in startup successes from that region. And then, of course, I'll close it out with an event rundown, what's happening around the state. As always, during our topic of conversation, feel free to just drop any questions that you might have of our speaker today in the chat, and I'll moderate those questions. So as a reminder, you and your team and anyone that you wish to share, you are always welcome to go back to prior Startup Resource Series webinars. We have those topics laid out for you for the last year. Just pop over to the KAITC.com site. You'll see our initiatives on the menu. Click on that, click on the Kentucky Innovation Hubs, and just scroll down and you'll see a year's worth of the past Startup Resources Series webinars. You can view those recordings, share those recordings as you like. You're welcome to do that. It's a great library, great resource for you to have. And one other reminder that I want to be sure you know about, this was announced yesterday. Kentucky Inno, as part of Louisville Business First, has announced that they are now accepting nominations for the 2027 Startups to Watch list. This is a statewide recognition of those early stage companies that are less than 5 years old that are selected to the Startups to Watch list. Those can be companies from anywhere in Kentucky and also in Southern Indiana. Those nominations are due by November 16th, and we'll drop that link into the chat, but you can also just simply search for Kentucky Inno 2027 Startups to Watch. So please do encourage your startup clients to apply for that if they have not been recognized in the past. And of course, you are welcome to nominate them also. All right, with that, let's move on to the good stuff. I am so excited to share with you Marilyn LeBourveau. She is project manager within the Cabinet for Economic Development, all part of Team Kentucky, and leads a number of initiatives within the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, also known as KYNO. And today, there are a number of very recent changes that have been enacted with the KAITC program, Kentucky Angel Investment Tax Credit Program. And so I know that before she gets started, I see David Brock is with us. David, is there any further announcements from the cabinet that you would like to share with us?
Thank you, Lisa. I'll be quick because I want Marilyn to have the balance of the time to really go into some of these changes in detail because they're important for everybody to know. But quickly, good morning. Thanks to everybody who's joining what is a growing group of entrepreneur service providers. I'll provide just a couple of quick updates. One, our STTR matching funds program awards were just announced recently. 6 companies received a total of $750,000. And that included a wide range of technologies and even a company relocating to Kentucky from California. So that program continues to be a powerful tool providing non-dilutive funding. If you want to find out more about that, we will put the link to the SBIR page up. And it is timely because the next round will open next month. So want everyone to be aware of that. Also, we encourage anyone who works with small businesses that may qualify for the Kentucky Small Business Tax Credit to start preparing applications now for the current tax year. We will put out a press release and some other marketing materials about that soon. But it is not too soon to start preparing. We receive a large volume of applications, and so what we encourage everyone to do is get their applications in by November 1st to guarantee that those are reviewed and approved for this tax year. And just a quick update, Marilyn's going to again go into more detail on some of the legislative changes that are now going into effect. This was one of the busiest sessions as it relates to economic development writ large in a long time, but also that includes several things that relate directly to entrepreneur-led economic development. House Bill 577 introduced some updates to language and some key program changes. Chief among those, the angel investment tax credit changes Maryland's going to be covering today. But there also was a long list of line items approved that provide additional funding for early stage investment, as well as new initiatives to support entrepreneurship statewide. There will be much more to share on those in future webinars going forward, but just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. Thank you again to everyone for joining us. Please visit kyinnovation.com if you want any more information about our programs, and never hesitate to reach out at info@kyinnovation.com, and we'll put all of that in the chat as well. Thank you, Lisa. I will step out of the way and let Marilyn take the stage.
Perfect. Thanks so much, David. Appreciate all of those updates and, of course, sharing additional resources and opportunities. And as mentioned, we'll drop those in the chat for you. So Marilyn, if you want to go ahead and pull up your presentation, and while you're doing that, as David just mentioned, there were quite a number of legislative updates, including for the Kentucky Angel Investment Tax Credit Program. And we want to bring this information to you in a very timely manner. So as I mentioned, this has a lot of meaningful impact for both investors and startups, and a good idea for you all to be familiar with the key opportunities that are available at this point. And again, this is a great program that drives our region's founder growth and their success. And as appropriate, we want to be sure that you have the latest and greatest information to share with your startup clients. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marilyn. Thank you so much for joining us, and take it away. And Marilyn, you're on mute.
Yes. Okay. Now, can you hear me? Start my video.
Yes, we can.
All right. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Marilyn LeBourveau. I'm KAITC Innovation in the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development. Delighted to be here with you all today, and really very excited to talk about this program in depth. Lisa and I have been talking about it a couple months ago, and there were 2 main enhancements that came out of the legislative session this year. And we thought, well, this is just a good opportunity to get back in and do a deep dive on the whole thing. So please stay with us. We're going to really get into this in depth, and I'll also show you a little bit behind the scenes what happens when we get applications here in the Cabinet for Economic Development, how those get processed. Because timing on these angel investment tax credits is very often critical, because the companies are doing rounds and series, et cetera, and the investors are trying to get their investment in. I did put just the main mailbox for the angel program in here, ced.angel.at ky.gov. And so you submit your applications there. And then also, if you have any general questions or inquiries, you can send them in there or send them to me. I've got my contact information at the end. So, but that's kind of easy to remember. And there are multiple people that monitor that mailbox, so we'll respond quickly to you. I want to start with a program overview, and don't be discouraged. I'm not going to read these slides to you. So, but and when I give presentations typically about this program, along with our others, I say this is where this is an attractive tax credit for those high net worth individuals that are investing their private wealth in Kentucky's startup businesses, their fast growth businesses. So the qualified investors make the investments, the tax credits go to the investors. It is a non-refundable tax credit, just want to make that clear. So you're never going to get a check back, but you can apply it to your future tax liability. I did highlight on this slide the Kentucky revised statutes that apply to this program. If you're interested, you can go back and actually read the legislation. And of course, a lot of that was updated just in July with these new changes. Okay, so I wanted to first highlight what the changes are, so as we're going along here what to look for. One is the Heritage County designation. This replaces Enhanced County designation, which in the past, and this is where the location of the qualified small business is, not the investor, but where their qualified small business is, and it determines the amount of the tax credit. So in Heritage County, the investor would get a 40% tax credit on their investment. In a non-Heritage County, it would be 25%. And with this new designation, it's based on population. I do have slides on this later, and we'll go into this a little bit more. So if the investor was making $100,000 easy math, investment into one of these high growth businesses, their tax credit, if the business was located in a Heritage County, would be $40,000, and if it was in a non-Heritage County, it'd be $25,000. The second enhancement that was that enacted this year is that now investors can make their application through a special purpose vehicle. And we will go through that more in detail later too, and how that works and what the options are for the investor. I put the website on here. Maybe somebody can drop that in the chat so that folks can read along or find that so they can reference it later. But the applications, the guidelines, and the reports show like what businesses have been already certified this year and what investments have already been made this year. But that's all available on the website. History and statistics on this program. It did begin in 2015. We started processing applications for investments in the small businesses. There was a pause on the program in 2019 and 2020. I don't quite remember exactly the rationale on that, but I do know that coming out of the gate, the first years, the money went out very quickly to investors. And I think they were kind of taking a pause to kind of reassess the program a little bit and just see, where we were. And of course, then it was COVID in 2020, but we started right back up again in 2021. And so we've been processing applications. On this program, there are $3 million in potential tax credits allotted for this program every calendar year. So this specific program goes on the calendar year, not the fiscal year. Most of our other programs are on the fiscal year. So this is January to December. Over the life of the program, total investments approved for those investors has been $63 million. Total those are the investments that go into the company, not for the tax credits, 63 million. So that's investments into those high growth businesses. The angel tax credits approved have been $20 million. And so over the life of the program, the average tax credit, just dividing by the number approved, was about 26,000. Some are higher, some are lower, but that's over the life of the program. Year to date so far, 1.955 million have been allotted. So we still have $1 million available. This is August. So please, if you're an investor or if you're a small business and you think you want some investment this year, please take advantage of that and get your applications in so that we can get those processed for you. Okay, qualified small business. And on this, just to be clear on this, the small business has to qualify. Then they make an application, and then the investor and an investment has to qualify when they're ready to make an investment. So there are some size limitations. That first line in there kind of talks about maximums on the size of the business and the revenue. They do have to be principally located in Kentucky, and involved in a qualified activity. Next slide, we're going to go over qualified activities. So they do have to be high growth, okay, what we call high growth. They're not just a traditional type business. And as you see, I always refer to Shark Tank when we talk about angel investment tax credit, because so many people have that reference and understand. These people are investing in your business. They don't want to be in business with you for 20 years. They think you're a good risk, and that that you're going to scale and exit, and that they'll get paid back handsomely for their investment. The company can't have more than 100 full-time employees. And the company can be pre-revenue, okay? They don't have to have employees or revenue to apply. They do have to have the technology or whatever it is that they're doing to qualify for the program, but they can be pre-revenue. More than 50% of the assets, operations of the employees of the company have to be located in the Commonwealth. And so that's an aggregate of the assets, operations, and employees. We used to look at that just more than 50% of each one, but they loosened that up a little bit. So it's an aggregate. So that's beneficial for the small businesses that we're reviewing. And once a small business once investors in a particular small business receive an aggregate of $1 million, then that small business has sized out of this program. That's the tax credits amount, not the investment amount, but the tax credit amount, okay? Qualified activity. Okay, so the company has to be engaged in, these are categories that came out when the program started: bioscience, environmental and energy technology, health and human development, information technology and communications, material science and advanced manufacturing, or other new economy knowledge-based activity. And this always kind of sounds kind of old-timey to me. This is my personal opinion. When they started talking about innovation in the early aughts, the internet was not quite so prevalent. Now we got AI, and tech enabled, so they call it other new economy knowledge-based activity. So we review applications from all kinds of products and technologies that are coming out, a lot of apps. But we're always glad to look at them. If you think that your business might be qualified for this and you're looking for those equity investors, angel investors, please do take advantage of this program. Okay, qualified investor, and I put this up here so I didn't forget to say it. The investor does not have to live in Kentucky. He can live anywhere in the world, literally. And we have had investors that from outside the United States invest in Kentucky high growth businesses. And you would say, well, why would someone that doesn't live in Kentucky, they're not going to have a Kentucky tax liability, why would they want a Kentucky income tax credit? Well, they can, it's awarded to the investor, the tax credit's awarded to the investor, but on this particular program, they can work with the Kentucky Department of Revenue to transfer, in other words, to sell their tax credit to another taxpayer. So that is why they might want it, and that is a good incentive for them to make these investments in these high growth businesses. The language on the statute, they have to be a natural person. So we call it, so a natural person, that they can use a single member limited liability company, that natural person is, as long as it's just them and it's disregarded. They do have to be an accredited investor, and on the application, there's some language on that, just so that they kind of self-certify on that. We don't go back and check you on that. They can't hold in excess of 20% ownership in the small business and not be employed by the small business, the qualified small business, prior to making the investment. This is the investor. And they're not closely related to, and this is kind of a long category here, an individual, they're not closely related to someone who holds more than 20% in the business, is employed by the business prior to making their qualified investment. And for purposes of this statute, The close related is in relation to the owner or owners or spouses of the owner or owners, parents or grandparents, children or their spouses, and siblings or their spouses. So kind of the broad immediate family. And obviously they're making an investment because they're seek a financial return on this. They're limited in each investor is limited to a maximum of $200,000 in angel tax credits per calendar year. And that does not have to be all in one business. If they're investing in multiple businesses, that's fine, but they can only get $200,000 in angel tax credits per calendar year. And there's a 15-year carry forward on the tax credits. Okay, now we're going to get into the qualified investment in a special purpose vehicle we touched on at the beginning. So when the investor is actually going to fund their investment, and it has to be at least $10,000, they can take the personal checking account. If they have a single member LLC disregarded, then they can write it out of that checking account for that LLC. And what's new is they can go through this pass-through entity, the special purpose vehicle that was created for the purpose of making investments for one or more investors in one qualified business. It can't just be set up and manage multiple investments. It's for one particular business. If the investment is made through the special purpose vehicle, then obviously, like if you have 3 investors and they're each, investing $50,000, then it's $150,000. Well, each individual investor is just going to get a tax credit based on the amount that they're actually investing. The pass-through entity cannot make qualified investments more than one company. So please listen when I say, if you're investing through a special purpose vehicle, yes, you're giving your funds to the special purpose vehicle to make that investment, but you still have to make an application for the tax credit so that you get approved and that you actually get that tax credit. So don't skip that step or else you won't get the tax credit. Okay, heritage counties. So this is new. Heritage counties, again, they could get up to 40% of the confirmed investment amount of the tax credit. Of the investment. If it's in a non-heritage county, it'd be 25% of the confirmed investment amount. So I gave those examples a little bit earlier. And this is based on the county where the qualified small business is located, not where the investor is located. Here's the map. The enhanced counties, and this is based on population. The enhanced counties, the way they used to do it, was a little bit more of a formula, and it changed from year to year. This is based on population. They're going to reevaluate it every 2 years. So this is based on population for 2026. So they'll look at it again and reassign, heritage and non-heritage in 2028. So some counties that were previously, enhanced, or that those investors were $40,000 are not they're not in heritage counties. So the investors are getting $25,000. So if you're a company or if you're an investor that has been having investments, you might want to just check this map and see where you are so that your investors know going forward. And I'm really delighted to go over this because whether you're an entrepreneurial support person, whether you're a founder, whether you're a small business that's in this program or wanting to get in this program, or if you're an investor, I don't know how many investors we have on here, but I do want you to understand the program and understand how it works so that you can take advantage of it. Okay, so this is where we draw the curtain back and look a little bit at what goes on as we receive applications. So the qualified small business does have to be certified. You have to put in an application with us and get approved for each calendar year when you want to have investments received. So the first time around, we review it, and then you do have to reapply each year and be recertified if you're going to get investments that year. The applications, okay, we're coming towards the end of 2026 based on the KAITC calendar. So if you think, well, we don't want investments in 2026, but we are looking ahead, and early 2027, we'd like to have some investors make investments. Well, mid-December, the updated applications are usually available on the website. So you can go ahead and in late December and submit that application so we can get that process for you if you're looking forward to having investments made early in December for both yourself and for the investors. There is a $100 application fee for the qualified small business each year that they make application. As those applications come in, we review them in the KY Innovation Office. We do the preliminary review, make sure we have all the documentation, make sure they're filled out correctly, any other information that we might need. And then we move the applications over to our program administration team for additional review and approval. So you get approved. And I put this on here, the qualified small businesses typically do not require KEDFA approval. I don't know that they ever have, but I just said that in case, sometimes they think the business does not have to go to KEDFA, the investments do. And KEDFA is the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority. They have a board meeting once a month. And if the qualified small business is receiving investments each year that they're receiving for investments, there is a 5-year reporting requirement through our compliance department for this qualified small business. And basically they're looking at, 1, the business is still in business, and 2, that they haven't moved out of state. Okay, so that's the qualified small business. There's an application on that. The qualified investor investment. So this is, and again, if you're investing through a special purpose vehicle, that's fine. You sent your money there, but you need to do this part in the correct timing so that you are eligible for the tax credit. So the investment does have to be approved by the KEDFA board before it is funded. So, this is August 18th. You can't send us an application and say, oh, well, I want to make an investment on August 21st. We haven't been approved yet. You need to be approved before you fund that investment, or you will forfeit your tax credit. So there is timing on this. We know things in the angel world move kind of quickly. So we do try to process these as quick as possible, but we do want to make sure that people are paying a close time. Now, the KEDFA board meets the last Thursday of each month, except for November and December. So coming towards the end of this year, this makes a difference. In November and December, due to the holidays, there's just one combined meeting in early December. So if you're making investments this year, okay, we're already kind of past the midpoint for August. So you could get approved at the end of September, at the end of October, and then in early December. And for the investor, this makes a difference because from the day they get approved, they have 80 calendar days to fund the investment and get all the compliance paperwork back in. So if you don't get approved till December, you're only going to have maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get all that done. So that's if you think you can do that, that's fine. But we want you to know about that. And as we get applications in, like if you, like I said, send an application in today and you said, okay, well, I'm going to fund this investment on, August 25th, we would say, well, we got your application, but you're not going to be approved by then. So give us another date. It wouldn't be, till the end of September at the earliest. Is that going to work for you? There's an application fee that you send in. It's $500 or $1,500, depending on the amount of the tax credit. If the tax credit is less than $50,000, it's $500. If it's more than $50,000, it's $1,500. That's the tax credit amount, not the investment. And we do run background checks on all the investors. If made investments before and we already have a background check on you, we usually don't do a new one unless you have disclosed that you had a bankruptcy or some criminal activity or something like that, something that we might want to check on. So okay, approval and compliance. Okay, if the planned investment, okay, so let's say we got all your application in, et cetera, everything looks fine and it goes to the KEDFA board. I didn't look up the date. I think it's the 28th this month, August 28th. The KEDFA board, they would approve it. You would get notified that day, typically with an email saying, yes, it was approved. And so lickety split, you can go ahead and fund your investment. Okay. And that's when the clock starts. You have 80 days. And then this is where the compliance part comes in. And this does not go through KY Innovation, so I'm not quite as familiar with it all, but the investor has to move the funds. They have to provide all the compliance. And then when compliance says, okay, then everything looks fine, you've completed everything that we need, here's a letter, you're awarded your tax credit. Now on these special purpose vehicles, it's full disclosure, this is new, so we haven't received any yet. So I'm sure there will be questions as we go along. But like I said, they may be actually sending the funds in for the investment, but it's up to the investor to do all the compliance. Okay. Okay, that was everything I had on angel investment tax credit. Hopefully there's some questions in the chat. I do just want to show you, this is our team. Okay, David Brock, who spoke earlier, is our executive director. We will soon be adding a deputy executive director, name unknown yet, but we're looking forward to that. And that person will be added to the slide. Marion E. Camp, Christine McNeil, Tori Woods, and myself, we are all senior project managers, and we process these applications as they come in, as well as other programs that come through our office. I always want to say we don't just do angel tax credits. We do a lot of different things. So this is kind of a short list of the programs that come through us. Now, venture capital incentives, we don't actually process those applications. As a government agency, we do provide funds for that, but we can't fund those directly. So Key Horse Capital and Commonwealth Seed Capital actually do those investments. And then, of course, we do have 6 hub offices across the state that are supported through and contracted through our office. And here are the 6 hub offices. And these folks are really professionals on all the programs and resources available to you. If you're a founder, if you're looking to start up a business, if you're interested, a lot of them do luncheons and meet and greets, et cetera, for investors. So they're really your go-tos, and they know your region, and they also know the other hubs. So if the other hubs have specialties in what you're looking for, they can make sure you make those connections so that you can really thrive in Kentucky. Here's the contact information. Again, you're welcome to get in touch with me directly. Our general mailbox for KY Innovation is just info@kyinnovation.com. And then the easiest one to remember is the angel email, which is just ced.angel@ky.gov. And that is all my slides. So thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you, Marilyn. That was incredibly thorough, comprehensive, and a great resource. And so if there's any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. But just to summarize some of the newest changes from our most recent legislation, of course, the change from our enhanced counties to now heritage counties based upon population. That'll be reviewed every 2 years and adjusted as needed. The inclusion of special purpose vehicles being eligible for our Kentucky Angel Investment Tax Credit Program as well. Good to note that the allocations of the tax credit are based upon a calendar year. And at this point in time, from now until the end of the year, there are still about $1 million left in available tax credits. For any of your founders of eligible companies, please note that they must apply as a qualified small business, and the investor must also apply as a qualified investor. And approvals do need to be received before the investment is made in order to have a successful tax credit process. So we will certainly drop the slides that Marilyn has presented into the follow-up email that we send out to everybody that's on the call today. So you'll have access to that. We'll also post the slides to our Slack for our innovation hubs and ESOs that have joined that. And of course, I'll post them to our Startup Resources Toolkit. So all of that new and updated information will be available to everyone. We do have a question for you, Marilyn. Does the investor typically have a company in mind, or are they presented with options of where they want their funds to go?
Okay, we are not permitted to do matchmaking that way, but typically the investor might know someone, and they can also go to the website and see which companies have been approved. Okay, and they might also contact their local hub just to kind of get an idea what businesses they're working with, if there are any, coming down the pike that maybe haven't registered yet. So all the investments in the qualified small businesses are shown. There's a report on the website where you can see who's already qualified for this year. We won't know until we get applications who's coming down the, but to check in with their hubs. And yeah.
And Marilyn, I would strongly guess, but you can confirm that investors who are interested in this available tax credit have generally a good idea of a potential investment they're looking to make generally, right? They
Yes.
certainly, as you've said, can look at who has already been a qualified small business. They can work with the local or regional innovation hub, who are the companies that are potentially raising around. But I would guess that they have an investment potentially in mind that they're looking to make and want
Yes.
to look into this tax credit program further.
Yes, and a lot of times the businesses are working closely with their investors,
Hmm.
and they may actually be copied on the email when
Right,
the application comes in because they're keeping track of it too, because they're trying to keep the timing for their investment coming in.
right. Okay. All right. Let's see. I don't think I see any further questions. So with that, Marilyn, thank you so much. You and the team there are quite the experts in all of these available programs, and we thank you for sharing the latest updates with this particular Kentucky Angel Investment tax credit. So thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and bring forward Dave Knox. As you know, Dave is Executive Director of our Innovation Hub in the Northern Kentucky region, based out of Covington, representing Blue North and all of the very successful early stage companies, investors, and that entire startup community. Dave's here to chat with us a little bit in our hub highlight this month about some of the most recent successes and initiatives of the Blue North Innovation Hub. Hi, Dave. I will
How's it
stop
going?
sharing. There we go. Coming to us from Spark House. We appreciate the artwork in the background there.
Always have to be branding.
Yes, always branding.
Okay, here we go.
Very cool.
That's
All right.
showing.
Yep, we see it. If you want to just switch over to full screen or slideshow.
Yeah, if it wants to behave. There we go. So good to talk with everyone. Appreciate the opportunity. Come give an update on the world of Blue North. So as a refresher and building off the great slides that Marilyn had there, we are the Northern Kentucky Innovation Hub. So Blue North covers 17 counties of Northern Kentucky, and that takes us all the ways on the east to Lewis, all the ways on the west to Oldham County. So pretty wide range territory that we have for it. And when we talk about the mission for Blue North and the role that we play, we really say that we have kind of three parts to our mission. So the first part is be the front door for entrepreneurs, and particularly be that front door for the high growth entrepreneurs and startups that are looking for the right resources to accelerate their growth. Our second role is to be the champion for Northern Kentucky founders. With that, we talk about elevating our entrepreneurs on a local, regional, and national stage. That can take a whole lot of different meanings, but as an example for what Lisa started off with of the KYNO startups to watch, last year we handled the nominations for a few of our companies that end up winning that award. And we also did it for the same side on the other side of the river with Cincinnati and had a couple of companies that were able to get there. And then our final part is we talk about being a catalyst for ecosystem growth. We really want to focus on driving initiatives that have exponential impact and strengthening on the Northern Kentucky entrepreneurial ecosystem. And that ecosystem are the high growth startups ready to scale, entrepreneurship through acquisition, and also companies and brands that have a potential for that national reach across the board. Things like Spark House are a great example of how we try and roll up our sleeves, or to the topics that Marilyn just discussed. We played a big role in House Bill 577 that led to some of those angel tax credit changes, because they were things that our entrepreneurs were bringing to us and say, we want to be able to use SPVs more. How do we get this fixed so it can be something that works for us? If you look at the 6 months since we last provided one of these startup resources, we've been busy with our Startups Served and Startups Connected, rolling up our sleeves. And our goal is our team wants to spend at least 50% of our time every single day one-on-one with entrepreneurs, helping drive things forward. A lot of those turn out to be events and different things of that nature. But it also is really helping those entrepreneurs in their initial steps. We're seeing an explosion of what new business creation looks like really across the Commonwealth. And we're spending our time helping do that and drive that behavior. One of our new initiatives we want to highlight was something that we just started actually in May as a new idea, which was this kind of insight of the best mentorship is going to come from the founders that are 18 to 36 months in front of you. It doesn't necessarily have to come from somebody that was building things 5, 10, 15 years ago, but it's those that are in the trenches, living and breathing what you're doing. And that's how an entrepreneurial support organization becomes an entrepreneurial community. And so our new concept is this one called the Founder Circle. The Founder Circle is we take one of our earliest stage entrepreneurs and we have them do an hour mentorship with 5 to 7 of their fellow entrepreneurs. They're just a little bit ahead of them in their journey. So we've had 3 of our entrepreneurs participate thus far. They have all been companies that are currently going through our Brink program, which is one of the Idea Fund programs that we have. And the feedback's been really incredible. And it's been incredible both in the benefit of the support that's given to the entrepreneurs, but it's also an opportunity for those entrepreneurs to learn from each other. And a lot of times these are founders that they see each other in the halls, they see each other at events, but they haven't been able to sit down for an hour and hear them give feedback and talk to each other. And so we've also seen this benefit of that peer learning, not just happening for the early stage entrepreneur, but also for the fellow entrepreneurs that are there as mentors. With that, another thing that we've been focusing a lot on is how do we drive customer connections? Funding is vitally important, obviously, for a lot of the companies we work with. But what's really important is how do you drive the connections and the introductions and have those turn into things that drive a company forward. And so I want to highlight just a few of the different ways we've done that. We kind of think about customers, press, talent is the things that we do a lot of our introductions around. And Beauty Intelligence was a really great example of that. So they came in through the Idea Fund in our Brink program. That led to an investor introduction that converted into an Idea Fund investment. We also introduced them to a student that actually applied for one of our fellowships at Blue North, that when we learned about their interests, we actually thought they would be a better connection for Beauty Intelligence. Beauty Intelligence ended up hiring them as a full-time intern to join the team, which then in turn led to a full-time job with the company. And then along the way, because of the introductions we made for them, they've been able to do 2 different stage advancements. So for us, this is really a capture of the work that we do has to be driving in different things in moving companies forward, not just being introductions for introduction's sake. And then the final thing I'll highlight is an effort that we did as a partnership between Keyhorse and Centrifuge to really think about how do we get more capital spending time in our state and building the relationships here to do that. So Bourbon and Backers was a program that we did our first time in 2024. This was our second time running it, where we reached out to about 30 different venture capitalists across the country. And we gave them a very simple premise. We said, do you want to come drink bourbon like a local? And go figure, every single one said, yes, we would love to do that. So we had 30 VCs come across the country from San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, New York, Chicago, to come do a day and a half in the region purely for relationship building. What we want to show them is this is a state that is a place they can come spend more time and meet some really interesting companies, engage in different ways. This year, we also brought in the added element of engaging some potential fund of funds and LPs as well. So that's why we had Great American Insurance involved in support with that. And it's the idea of let's just get more involvement because we need to attract more capital to the state. And this is one way that we're working on doing that and using our unfair advantage of our native spirit to do exactly that. So that's kind of what we've got. If anybody ever needs support, help in any way, feel free to reach out. We'd love to chat with you and stop by for a starter coffee at Spark House anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dave. Certainly, we always appreciate not only your in-depth legislative support to move things forward on behalf of the entire state, but also your experimental nature in developing various programs to try them, particularly the innovation around, as you stated, bringing investors into the region. Let's share one of our highly qualified assets, bourbon, and start the conversation and build those relationships. So thank you so much for sharing the latest in Blue North. And with that, I will go back to share again. And just to highlight for you all again, a reminder that Kentucky Inno nominations for their 2027 startups to watch, those are due November 16th. That link to nominate is in the chat. And if you may remember, we talked very recently, Kentucky Commercialization Ventures Invent program, which matches university interns to early stage companies, and those interns are paid for by the KCV Invent program. Any businesses interested in applying for an intern, you can do so by September 1st. And we'll drop that link in the email as well as in the chat. So upcoming events across the state. Amplify has their virtual ed tech exchange program happening this evening, which is virtual. Sprocket, of course, every Wednesday holds their business support coffee hour. As you know, we introduced Kelly Wright as the new Executive Director, Innovation Hub Director for the Create region in Bowling Green, and there is a meet and greet with Kelly this tomorrow evening, yes, at 4:30 Central and at the WKU Innovation Campus. Sprocket has their Growth Lab Marketing Strategies series that kicks off next week on Tuesday. Amplify's got their Build and Pitch next week. Blue North is hosting their Entrepreneurship Impact on Northern Kentucky event, the 26th, also next week on Wednesday at Florence Nature Park. And then to the right, you see some additional upcoming events later in the month. Please note some of the Key Horse Venture sessions. This is a series of venture capital investment webinars that are on various different dates at 12 noon. They are virtual. Key Horse has the next one next week on the 27th, how to prepare for your raise. And then, of course, September 1st, everything you want to know about data room and diligence readiness. Amplify has Venture Connectors happening September 2nd. 5 Across is coming up soon, September 9th. And we will be here next month, September 15th at 11 virtually for the next in our Startup Resource Series. And I'm very pleased that we'll have Ian McClure with UK Innovate join us to talk about many, many updates that have occurred with Game Change, focused on our advanced manufacturing sector and also early stage companies. So you will want to hear all about the significant progress of Game Change from Ian McClure next month. Wishing everyone a great day. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you here next month. Thank you.